Hey guys, how's it going? Ghosty Rich here today, and today we are starting from scratch on the power steering pump system. If you remember, I did this setup just to get the Hemi up and running, but I really have never loved having the power steering pump reservoir right here, and it's just attached by one little bracket. It's not the end of the world, but it's kind of a nightmare attaching this to a factory ram pump. So the plan is we're going to get rid of the ram pump. We're going to get rid of this reservoir. We're going to keep the power steering cooler installed on there, and we're going to replumb in everything. So I'll probably end up backing off this piece right here. So that way, if you're starting from scratch, you can still use this video. The first thing I've got to do is take off the radiator fan so that way we can get access properly to the power steering. And then we can go ahead and start mounting everything. This is the power steering pump kit that PSC sent out to me. So we kind of hand put together some stuff, like we got brand new hoses for the return line and the feed line, or the high pressure line, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see right here, we have an anti-splash, mounting bracket, new pulley, so that way I know it's going to fit the end of that. We've also got some spacers, which we'll see how much spacing we need to bring it out and flush it in line. And then as you can see, we've also got, those are the adapters for the reservoir, so we can add our hoses to them because they should be all AN fittings. And then that little black kit down there is for the anti-splash, which has quick lock lines, and that's part of the mount. That's basically it. We'll go over all the pieces. If you want some of the product numbers, there you go. SP32332 and SR146. And we have SRVT. And I can go through more of them as we go. So, let's get started on this. Where does that bracket mount, you might ask? Well, it's kind of in a crazy situation for a spot. It's gonna go like right here. So I might have to do some fun stuff here because it's literally not the most ideal situation. So if you have your fenders out like I do, I'll be able to reach in with the bracket and get it in right here. I'll put it on a tripod so you can see, but basically I'm gonna have to wrap the bracket around, bring it around in here because the bracket kind of goes right around here. So this is our bracket. You can either like I said, I can bring it in a little bit easier through the fender well, and you can navigate it from 2 points. Keep in mind the steering shaft is right there. The other way you can do it, this one might be easier for you to see, is you bring it in on an angle right here. You have to work it around the brake lines, but you simply you have to move it around a little bit to get it in. Let's see. There we go. After it gets around the brake lines, we can get it up and into position. And that's how it's going to sit. And then it'll have that adapter right here, and we can bring it down there. And it should just clear that steering shaft. So, once you have it somewhat in line, now we have to take the bolts off the brake booster. The one right here and the one right there. I'll bring the camera in closer so you can see it, but let's see if I can leave this kind of in here if it's going to try and fall on me. No, I should be able to leave it right there. The reason why I want to leave it in there is that way I simply just loosen those bolts off, slip the piece up here, up, and then tighten the 2 bolts back on. Let's show you the 2 bolts I'm talking about. So, let's zoom in. See that bolt right there? That's one of them. And then there's another one that's just behind this bracket, which is right behind this vacuum piece. But there's one there and one there, straight in line on the brake booster. So let's go over what had to happen. I quickly pulled this out of here. It just tucks back in here. But as you can see, that bolt is now in there. That one is now in there. It's harder to see that one. I had to move. It's pretty easy. Just grab the hose, slip it off the sensor, flip the sensor down like that. Or you might have to move it a couple times while you are sliding the bracket in and tightening that screw up. But that's what you have to do. But it's easier if you can unplug it. I left the connector attached, but then you just take that hose, which is protected, and tuck it in behind it. But you do that after you tighten it. You'll notice that there is space after you tighten it because of the brake booster bracket being so thick. It leaves you enough room, and this is the best way I could see it sitting as flush as it could be. Even if you flip it straight up, it doesn't sit flush properly. It's just the way this bracket works. But that being said, I've got the brake booster now. It's plugged in, hose is completely squeezed back on, and we now have the mounting bracket in. Again, it's just that screw, that screw. Oh, the other thing I did, put my hand up here and then bent the AC line a little bit away from here. You don't want them rubbing against here. So for example, with this, I'll probably zap strap or do something here just to keep this one out of the way. Or I could just give it a slight bend so it comes out over here. Just be careful with this one. It's super easy to kink because it's so tiny. You don't want to kink it, especially if it's already all done. And if you're wondering, well, why, Rich, did you cut yours? Well, unfortunately, the 2015 passed the 2014 or whatever other ones. It's not two separate lines, it's one. So you have to cut it. That's why that kind of looks horrible. Anyways, that was explained during the Hemi install video. Now that we've got this ready to go, let me see if I can find a torque spec. I'll quickly give you that, and then we'll start throwing the reservoir together. So 156 inch-pounds or 13 foot-pounds. My foot-pound torque wrench won't fit in there to tighten them. So if you want to know, 13 foot-pounds. From here, you can choose which way you want this to go, either up or down. I personally want the shiny, beautiful piece of aluminum to be on top. If you don't, you can put it underneath. This is just two 13s. Make sure it lines up. You see there's a groove. See what happens if you shift it left or right. It doesn't fit. Make sure you center it as close as possible, and then tighten these down. No torque spec with these, just crank them down till you see fit. They have nylock, so they should not back off. You don't need spring washers. I am kind of surprised they didn't give us some washers just for here so you don't mar this up when you're tightening it. But I would definitely use a box wrench on that side and a nice clean socket on the top so you don't scratch this all up. When you're tightening it, just put the box on that end and just the center. You do not want to grab the full length of ratchet. We're not looking to crush the aluminum. We're just, if it acts like a little bit of a washer, cool. Just like that. Boom, done. No more needed. Nice, shiny, and clean. I'm gonna have to bend this just a tiny bit more, but I think I'm gonna try and bend it down like that. See that? Now I've got more clearance. And we got room for going off-road. It's not gonna bonk. Because the last thing you want is these aluminum lines to start bending in. There. The last thing you want are these lines to start rubbing up against here and then rub holes in them because it's very soft. You'll feel that when you bend them. And if you leave these rubbing, they'll wear right through, and then you get to buy new, what did Todd charge? I think it was like $400 for these lines. So I'm gonna go ahead, grab an Allen key, and then we loosen this off and we can put our cylinder in. This is now balanced, and you'll notice there's a tiny bit of overlap, but I guess there's a certain amount that their allowances are. So now that we've got that, we know that, well, we have more than enough room here for our cylinder to go in, but we do need to put our fittings in first before we go ahead and install it. So let's go ahead and prep up our canister with our fittings, and then we can sort of kind of jimmy it in here, which will help when we start going and seeing our line sizes. And then I'll start, once I get this canister ready, I'm gonna start to remove all this. I will install that in, put that in here, but I don't think you're really gonna need it because you already put this in yourself. So either way, let's go ahead. We'll leave that like that for a second, and let's go ahead and assemble this canister. The part number is SRK612P. Again, this should come with your canister kit. All right, we've opened the package. We have 3 different fittings. You're like, well, what does each one do? This is out. Out comes out of the canister into the pump. That feeds this pump, and then this pump feeds your rack feeds your cooler, then your cooler goes back into right here. The aux is for if you're using, I don't know, like the RAM assist or anything like that. I'm not, because I only run 35s, and you would never want to use RAM assist on anything that is 35s. You want it on 37s and stuff. Anyways, go ahead. I throw a little bit of Loctite on here. You don't need to. I just do it because it lubricates the threads, less chance of stripping. Also, make sure your fittings don't back off. You'll notice one side is beveled. Do not do the bevel side. Do the one with the O-ring side. The O-ring side is the one that goes to the canister and seals. The beveled side seals against your AN fittings. Ta-da! Again, a little bit of lubrication. If you can't go in, back thread, and it should help line it up. Come on. There we go. Just had to speak nice to her, I guess. Now, what I might do is actually get my socket right now and tighten this one first, because I don't know if we're going to have enough room. Let's see. Yeah, look at that. Look how close that is. I don't know if we're gonna have enough room. Actually, you might have to do it with a box wrench. Just do it with a box wrench. Again, do not over crank these. Just give them, like, once they seat the O-ring, maybe a quarter turn past there, just like you would your oil filter. Because if you go ham with it, you're gonna strip out the aluminum so easily. So, as you can see, I've tightened this almost all the way down with my fingers. Now I'm gonna go take a box wrench and just give it even a little bit of a turn. You'll feel it. It's gonna cinch down, and that Loctite's not gonna allow it to back off. I would rather you be more gentle with these fittings. It's easy enough. If these leak, you'll know right away. Just give it another quarter turn, not even a quarter, just like an eighth at a time, because like I said, what'll end up happening, if you over tighten these, it'll instantly just crack the threads. You'll just hear it, and then it's done. So anyways, go ahead, put it on, turn it a little bit, on, a little bit, and then we can put this into the vehicle for measurement of lines. I couldn't tell you what size this big guy is, but it literally just fit this one perfectly. Make sure it's a nice tight fit so you don't mar up the fitting, and then just give it, like I said, a nice crank. This one's almost in line right here, but I've tightened that one. Now I'm just going to tighten this one a little bit more, and again, I'll give you the size of this one in a sec. This one is an 8mm Allen key, and again, as soon as you feel it touch, it'll lock up really tight. You don't want to do anything like, that's all I would do. Just make sure it's at its max. That's why I'm not using a big ratchet, is I want to make sure I'm not going insane on these threads. Like I said, now that we've got that, we can go ahead and we can test fit it. The other thing, if you wanted to, you could technically at this point, you'll notice that they have a liquid thread sealant on it, but this is going to be, if you're doing the anti-splash. Maybe you're not. If you're not, you don't have to worry about this part, but the anti-splash just simply would go onto here and thread on. And again, it's already got a thread sealant on it, so just be careful when you tighten it that you don't mar up the top of your lid. You can even take your lid off to get it. This one right here is a 13, and then on the canister, the other one was a 7/8. Let's just compare for a second. That is what's currently in there, and that is what's going in. That looks so much better. I can't even get over this right now. It looks beautiful. All I did is I loosened this off. What Allen key? What's it? Let's see. I just grabbed a random Allen key and said this one. 5/32. So I grabbed a 5/32 Allen key, I loosened the screws out, and then now that they're out, I just have this sitting in here. From here, it's time to start removing. I have to take out everything. So all shrouds are different depending on which one you went with your Hemi swap. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to, of course, disconnect the Camaro SS fan just by pressing this duct tab. And then for mine, I've made it so I made these two brackets that hold it down. Again, it's gonna be much different than other people's, but as you can see, I use some old brake line extenders or adapters, and all you do is I loosen these that are holding my fan shroud down and into the two grooves, just like your factory one. So if yours has this, just loosen the two screws on both sides on the radiator, and then slide the fan shroud up. All right, I've got the breaker bar on the Serpentine. You just go like this, see the belt's loose, just slide it off of that idler pulley. And then after that, it'll be loose on the power steering. But again, you just push towards there. You'll see the belt loosens up. Now slide it off the idler. So from here, now that we've got that off, you're gonna have to, if you want to, put a piece of cardboard or something in front of here if you're worried about damaging your radiator. If you're not, and you're like, I can do this, perfect. I'm in the same boat. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So the first thing I think I'm gonna do is, because I have the old JSS right here, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take this bolt out. I think that's 15 if I remember correctly. It's either 15 or 14. Take it out, move the bracket over, put the bolt back into 40 foot-pounds. So depending on how big your cooler is, you'll need a couple bottles just to put all this fluid in. Now, I've got almost no fluid in here. If you have some in there, you might wanna use a turkey baster or a suction gun. Turkey basters you can literally get from the dollar store. You stick it in here, squeeze the bubble, pull some fluid out, squeeze it into there. And you just keep doing that until you get enough out that it's below this line, or just empty the whole reservoir if you want that way. After you've gone ahead and done that, then we can either A, remove the reservoir, do whatever you want to do from there, but we're gonna take this line off, put it into the bottle, and then you spin our pump, and our pump will actually push the fluid out of the system as you turn it. Suction gun. As you can see, I barely even have enough to warrant doing this, but I wanted to show you what I'm doing. See if I can get it a little deeper in there. There you go. Let it drain out a little bit. There we go, back in the tube. And I think that's it for me. There's no more that I can get out. There, I'm gonna loosen both clamps and just get the reservoir out of the way. Then we're gonna put our bottle right where the reservoir is, put this in, and like I said, we're just gonna spin the power steering pump by hand as quick as you can. And then it should also push some more fluid out of the system. You need to get as much of this old fluid out as you can, because PSC requires synthetic fluid, but it cannot be royal purple. You hear me say that a couple times throughout this. For some reason, something in royal purple is not good for the PSC systems. Gonna be hard for me to show you, but you hear it? Hear the fluid going? Anyways, that's all you do. Keep turning it. You'll see the fluid levels go down. If yours was sort of still full when you took it off, mine was, I'll wipe it up. I'll smell a little bit of power steering fluid, but either way, I expected that. Keep turning. letting the fluid drain into the bottle, and that should help get a lot of this fluid out. Turn the pump, line it up so the screws are in line with the pulley. It's time to take a 13 mil, loosen off the screw here, there, and on the bottom. There's 3 screws in total. So take that one out, take the one off to the side, and then the one on the bottom, and let's remove that old power steering pump. Also, if you can, I'll try and get you the size. I can never remember. If you want, get your adjustable wrench. You'll have your power steering line on the bottom of this, from which you're gonna have to disconnect from the bottom of the pump. This one that went to the reservoir is okay, but there's just that one fitting on the bottom. So like I said, loosen bolts, loosen fitting, get old power steering pump out of the way. Tip for you, do the bottom and the side one first, leave the top one to last, so that way it's really easy to gauge the threads coming out, and you can simply lift it out of the way to access power steering line going in with an adjustable wrench. Also, fun fact, it doesn't matter if you mar up the fitting too much, because if you've gone ahead, which you should have, and bought your new line kits, you're gonna make new custom lines that are gonna be shorter to go from there to there. The only one that'll be longer is the one that comes down to here. All right, let's go over what we've got going on here. So see this one. This is the fitting that's on your right, closest to the fender. That fitting is your high pressure. The one that is closer to the motor and also closer to the firewall, that one is your low pressure. This is important. The one that goes from the high pressure is going to go to our new power steering pump. That's going to be right here. The low pressure, which is right here, is going to go towards your cooler. Give me one sec. I'll get a flashlight too, and I'll make sure I shine this up here for you. So as you can see, I have an existing black line right here, which would have been off your factory one. If this is your first time and you've not added a cooler before, which is this piece right here, then what you do is you take the factory hose, and you'll see that barb that's on there, like right here. Let's go again, right here. This piece was on your factory line. What you do is you slice down the center of the factory line, and then you break the line off, so that way you've just got this fitting from your factory line. You then slide a hose on it and put a clamp on the end of it, and it goes down and into the top end of your cooler. Because then what it's going to do is it's going to feed your cooler, go through the cooler, out through the bottom, and then up, around, and to this port right here. So this, again, from the front, that goes closest to the engine, closest to the firewall. It's on your right-hand side if you're looking at it from the front of the vehicle. That one, you run a line from there to the top, and then from there, which is the bottom of the cooler, around, and then to right here. The next line is going to be that big guy, which is our feed line. It goes from right here, and it's going to go to the side or the top, we'll see where it lands, of the power steering pump. What that'll do is, of course, feed it the liquid. You'll notice that the feed line is always bigger, so that way it never starves of fluid. From there is a bottom fitting, which we'll go over off the power steering, and that bottom fitting, or side fitting, wherever it lands, will go from here to the one closest to the fender wall. And that is your high pressure line, which brings us to our 2 hose kits. This one right here is your hose kit for your feed and your return line from your cooler. This one right here is our high pressure line. Again, don't mix them up. They're usually rated to different pressures. And as you can see, we have everything here. The first thing you're gonna need, see that further fitting right there? Where you pull out your factory big fitting from your steering box there, you need to throw a little bit of Loctite in and thread it down and seat it. Remember, it's an aluminum fitting, it's got O-rings. You want it to seal. I'm actually probably gonna pull the one that I put in there out and then put that new one in. Again, I think it's a 15 millimeter socket, but don't quote me on that. I'll tell you when I pull it out of the package. All right, make sure it's clean just like that. Down there you can see the red fluid. I'm trying to make sure I don't block my headlamp. But again, take this fitting. Make sure your threads are nice and clean, which these ones are. Throw a tiny bit of Loctite to lubricate it, which there's already fluid on the threads, but whatever. Thread it in by hand. Once it's seated all the way to that O-ring, go ahead and just give it another crank so it's nice and tight using a 19 mil box wrench. I've come to the conclusion they probably sent me the wrong one with this kit. So if you're gonna do this, or if I hear what the proper one is, I'll tell you. I purchased this one from a local store a while ago because I was using AN6 as my main hose line. And again, this is just another AN6 style fitting, but I want to use their kit. I believe this was either M12 or M16, probably M16. I'll have to let you know. I'm gonna go back to my other video and I will tell you guys by the end of this. But if you order this kit, highest pressure assembly kit, they definitely sent me the wrong one. There's no way this one works here. The correct fitting size would be an M16-1.5. That is the size of the power steering to AN6 you need for your steering rack. If you want to access the power steering cooler, what you would want to do is go ahead, pop this tab right here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them for you on camera. Just basically do that. Then this one as well. Just be careful depending on how old yours are, as they will try to break on you. If they do, I mean, they're easy to find. It just, you gotta wait till they arrive. So just go ahead. I can see that one's already starting to go on the other side. So anyways, be careful, pop out that one and that one. The other thing, depending on what lights you have, you'll see these guys right here. Just pinch and disconnect. Let's see if I can pinch it. But yeah, you should be able to just pinch it and slide it out. Give me 1 sec. Do that to both sides though, or turn it sideways and pop the bulb out. You can also do that. You just turn the whole housing and then the whole bulb comes out like that. Just put it off to the side. Come over here, do the same. Once you have these screws out, pull the grill forward. Careful if you have a winch or you'll rub up against it, but pull the grill forward and move it out of the way. Again, pretty easy. Once you loosen the clips, you just pull it forward and then just lift it out as carefully as you can. Put it out of your working area so that way you don't scratch it up. Once you have the face off your Jeep, remember, top of the cooler, run a line from right here and then to that fitting that's already in there. You don't even have to take it off. If the line's here, just like I said, cut it and then run your own piece of line. It will not come with this kit. It's pretty easy though. You might have enough extra after you're done, depending on if you put the cooler over here or wherever you put it. I decided when I built this to put it here. Now my plan is I'm gonna get oil all over, so I'm gonna grab this pot right here. I'm gonna put it underneath and I'm gonna simply just loosen the fittings and let it pour. So loosen this one, you don't have to loosen this one, but unless you're putting, like I said, a line in, but I'm gonna loosen this one because I need to remove this hose because now I need to run a hose from right here to right here. All right, so as you can see, I popped my line off, removed it out of the way, and I'm leaving this one because this one does not need to be touched. It just goes simply from here, one last time, to the fitting that is at the front most, closest to the firewall and closest to the engine. Now that I have that one fitting, this fitting will slide the line onto here and terminate the AN6 fitting that will go here. So we'll try to keep it nice and steady. Just whatever you do, keep it free from that steering area. You don't want it to get wound up in your steering. That would be very bad. So if I were you, just run it down to here and pretty much run it along this fitting here, the one that goes out. And then if you follow that line, it'll bring you right back to here. So open up this set. I'm gonna clean my hands so that way my nice black lines it doesn't matter. Look at that engine bay. It's literally gonna get dirty again. From this point, you're gonna go ahead, slide that in. Now what I like to do, you don't have to do this, you can lubricate this fitting just a little bit with a little bit of the power steering fluid. What that'll allow you to do is squeeze that fitting all the way in because it has to sit flush. So don't worry, we'll cut this to length at the very end, but what you should do is lubricate that fitting and get it ready to go. And then when we go to cut this, just make sure you have a very sharp set of something so that way it's gonna look nice and clean when you cut it. Once you're sealed up, another thing you can do is simply press down on the top of a piece of wood with all your body weight. You can also try to tap it a little bit, but don't do it on the concrete, do it on wood so that way you don't mar up your fitting. And then from here, if you want to, another cheat code to using this stuff to make it look good, you can actually throw on a piece of 0 gauge heat shrink, heat it up, and it'll completely make sure that all these frays don't happen. So if you look closely, and it'll probably happen on the other end, it can fray when you cut it. So some people will just put black electrical tape, and if that's good enough for you, go ahead. But I'll show you a trick that you can do with 0 gauge heat shrink. Suck it right up to the rubber, and then all you do is you heat it up, and it'll heat shrink right to the hose, and it won't allow it to fray, and it gives it a nice looking end. You can also do it to the end there after you cut it, and then that way it just keeps everything from unwinding. There you go. Like I said, it just adds a nice rubberized end to the end of it, and it's completely up to you if you want to do that. Go ahead, tiny bit of Loctite, very, very tiny, just to lubricate the threads. Some people will say, no, Richard, no, use engine oil. And you're right, you can use engine oil. So go ahead, if you don't have blue Loctite, and lubricate your fitting with engine oil. Then go ahead, what we're gonna do, just crank it down. When you're using it, use it the tightest box wrench you can and tape up the ends. These are aluminum fittings. You want them tight, but don't go ham. If you go ham, you are gonna melt them because again, they are aluminum. They are as stable as pop cans. So go ahead, tighten them, but be careful when you do, as well as if you put some tape on there, it'll keep the fitting black and it won't completely etch off the black. After you've gone ahead and tightened it up, now we can go ahead, we'll leave this for right now, or you could try to bring it through. I've already brought mine through. I see, man, I've almost just got enough. I might even just leave it to tell you the truth. I was gonna trim a bit off, but I almost want a little bit extra just in case I wanna move that hose around. So I don't even think I have to cut it. I think it's the exact length I need, which is good on them. That's pretty sweet. So like I said, I'm just gonna heat up a little bit of heat shrink. Go ahead and throw that right here just to make sure this doesn't unravel over time. And then slide that back on with a C-clamp. And that should be good. Also make sure I go under these because you don't want that to chafe. Just make sure you're looking for items that are gonna chafe and then just keep it safe. From there, your low pressure side there should be done other than the fill line. Look at that, looking fresh. So the next fitting that we need to do is just the bottom one. So what we're gonna do is thread it on. It's a thread-on style. I should show you that afterwards. Anyways, it threads on, then we tie it down, and we're gonna leave it loose because when we put in our power steering pump, we're not gonna have really good access to down there, and we wanna tighten this up. So we're gonna do this, tighten it up, leave it loose here. Once we get the power steering pump, we'll cut our last 2 lines to length and then put them on the power steering. Now, the other thing we can do while the power steering is out is we can thread on our power steering pulley. So since I have that existing one, basically we want to thread on the power steering pulley, and then if we need to, we use these spacers that it comes with to space the power steering pump off the block. Because if that one is thicker than this one, that's what you have to do. Put a cloth underneath the hose, put it on here, throw just a tiny bit of silicone lubricant on there. From there, from what I can see, this is going to be almost reverse threaded. So, in reverse, tighten this. You just, so technically if you have your ratchet on, it's in the off position.
and just keep going and monitor it. It'll bottom out on the hose. You need to make sure that your cuts are flush across. All right, let's just double check. Yes, so if you look in here, your threaded piece that's in there should be, like I said, you have to put your ratchet on off. So now you're righty tighty, lefty loosey. In this case, you would be lefty tighty. And that's how you would get that to cinch down. And it should be seated right at the base of these finer threads, not the aggressive thread. You should not see a single aggressive thread, and it should be sitting flush with that. Now that we've got that, I might even just give this one more turn, just one last time. There. Yeah, she's in there. Okay, now that we've got that, put this back in here and put it right about there. Next, if you want, rather than the hose, you can grab it with actually anything you want. Basically what we got to do next is tie in the next piece, but you can't have the hose backing off. So you need to do this. Put this in the jaws of your vise. As you can see, I have cushion jaws. That's just because I work with a lot of different fittings and stuff, and you don't want to mar them up. With these ones, well, you don't have to worry as much because, well, they're silver. The worst case scenario is you'll see that it isn't sitting flush. So anyways, sink this down just like so. After you've gone ahead and sunk it down, just tell it's holding it nice and tight, ready to go. I usually just do it so it squishes my fitting. I'm gonna just position this back in the vise now, just like that. All right, now that I know that that's nice and in there, it's time, a little bit of Loctite or engine oil again, whichever you see fit for what you like to do. And we're just gonna stick this in there. Again, just making sure that the tip of that hose is there. You can go ahead and wiggle it in there. Now, another thing you can do, if you want, just on the tip of the fitting, just so it squeezes in there a little bit easier, just a little bit of silicone lubricant. And that's just gonna make it slide into that hose a little easier. All right, if you want, you can tape it up, make sure your surface is clean, and we're just gonna tighten. While trying to hold the hose, it's gonna be an adventure. But what you need to do now is we need to squeeze and start it. All right, once we've started it, we can go ahead and we can start tightening it. Now, something to note, this weight is righty-tighty. It is reverse threaded from the other fitting that you just did. This is reverse threaded, this is correct. Once you've got your measurement, I'll give you mine after, but hacksaws are the best way I've found to cut through this stuff. Almost there. Again, I would never usually put this much on an aluminum fitting. I'm pretty sure these are not aluminum. I'm used to AN fittings being aluminum. And the reason why I say that is because these, you for sure want them to cinch all the way down. Because these are high pressure. They're like, you can have up to, in a power steering situation, like 2,000 PSI plus. So you need to make sure that they're not going to back off. So might have to put your weight into it, but as you can see, I am almost completely cinched down. And then we know that 100%, these fittings are not going to back off under pressure. There you go. That was almost emotionally a triumph. Take a look at them. You'll see they're both fully seated. So when you're doing this, just make sure you have no gap. And yes, you're going to have to give it heck, especially if your vise is this small. You definitely need a vise to crimp or get these fittings down, and you'll be on it. If you have a bigger 5/8 ratchet, oh, you'll love the leverage. But yeah, or if you have a crow's foot, meaning this piece where you can add a ratchet to it, so it's longer, oh, you're gonna be in heaven. Use a 5/8 crow's foot and just take it off. It'll take your time, but you'll have so much leverage. Anyways, from here, let's go attach one end to the steering rack. And again, this is the one that's closest to the fender. Oh, if you bend them over completely in half, they should be both aiming in the same direction, just like that. Make sure you tighten them until they're at that point. Never loosen, only tighten. The hose is about 16.5 to 17. I'll leave that up to you. Do 17, keep it safe. 17 inches. Look at how shiny that looks in there. It looks awesome. Again, don't go He-Man, tighten it up with the 19. And then after you've tightened it with the 19, should be good. Now when we bend this over, see how it automatically bends onto the top? Perfect. Now we know that that's in the right direction. So loosely put that one on and just bend this over. Just make sure you're getting a good, clean bend down. You're not fighting it. If you are, take it back out and give it another spin. So that way it's in the right. And remember, never loosen, only tighten. Once we've done that, we don't have to do the fill yet. The fill will be the last one. What we want to do is go ahead and get our power steering pump ready. I think the best thing to do from this point is to get our pulley started. Now for this, you're gonna need a power steering pulley installer. I'll show you what that looks like. I think the best way to get this started is just do what we did here, which is I made it flush with there. Now, how do you know which is the front of the power steering pulley, you're probably gonna ask? Well, take a look here. You need this piece. This piece right here is so you can remove it later if the pump ever fails. It clamps onto here to pull it off. So whatever you do, don't put this facing the rear. Put this up like that. You'll see this one has one as well. If I were you, shoot a tiny bit of silicone lubricant on here, just so that way we can get a nice seat. And then we're just gonna put this right on there. I'm gonna get my power steering install kit and we're gonna go ahead and set that pulley on. What we really wanna do is try and keep that pulley level all the way down. You don't want it sitting cockeyed. So again, with our longest one here, just a little bit of silicone spray. You just thread it in. Just like so. There we go. Even when you first get this on here, you can try and hold it by this or whatever you want to do, but you just need to get that semi-tight in there. Once that's in there semi-tight, you just go ahead these ones are already silicone lubricated. Make sure yours are too. That just goes onto here. Let's make sure we're gonna have enough. Yeah, we should have a couple turns in there. Okay. So now you can even put this on there like so. And then this bearing right here, you just aim it down. So that way when it's crushing against that bearing, it should help spin. And again, this just goes down like this. And you'll see we've got it started. Just leave the long shaft on and just keep going. You're probably thinking, well, man, this would be so much easier in the vehicle. It would if we had room, but the radiator, if the radiator wasn't in the way, we could, but there wouldn't be room between this and the radiator to do it safely. The biggest key thing is safely. We're coming down, it's going down. We have to get it flush. At one point I'll pull this off and see how close it is to the snout, because I just want to get it as close as I can to the snout, really. Oh. Let's get this piece out of here. I'll show you again, just so you know, you tighten it down with this guy, the 11 mil, till it's all the way down. Then you go ahead, hold this with an 11 mil ratchet or box wrench, tighten it down with a 1/2 inch, as tight as you can go. And then from there, before I go ahead and put this kit away, let's go over one last time. Take the longest one, thread it as deep as it'll go with an 11 mil socket. After that, you take this guy and you tighten this one down with a 5/8, holding it with the 11 mil till they're fully seated. Then you put your bearing on top with the open side up, slap your washer on with the smooth side towards the smooth side. You'll see it's like a beveled smooth side. That goes onto there, and then the nut goes on top and ties down. You hold it with the 1/2 inch and tighten it with the 13/16. Now that we've got that, you can see, we're flush. That's what you want. Flush and in line. Now, you'll notice that if we put this, it's probably just a little bit off. Man, you know what? I'm gonna have to measure this. The guys sent me a shim kit, but the thing is, it looks like it's lining up pretty darn close, if not dead on. So what I'm gonna do is put a level on this, on a surface, and if it's completely level, I'm just gonna use maybe the 2 bolts out of here. Because you see how it comes with this? It's either that or I could actually return. They sent me 2 spacers. And I don't know why they sent me 2 spacers. With my caliper, I went to the bottom rib, which would be right there, and went to right here. And I put a level on that, and they're completely lined up. So, I think they sent me a much bigger power steering pump, which wouldn't surprise me. I heard that this one, from when I looked up the specs, is a crawler / power steering assist one. So that would be for if you had the what do they call that? The RAM assist down there. Well, I don't have it, but I have a heck of a big power steering pump. So if you have the smaller one from the Hemi kit, ignore what I'm about to say, which is you would just, if it's smaller and you put it like this and you'll notice that it's hanging a little lower, this one would be lower, then you would need to shim it. And as you can see, they sent me 2 shims, which I'll put a link in the description, would make sense. Let me zoom this back out. There we go. But as you can see, if you go and look up the kit in the description, it comes with 2 of these. And from what I can see, it's a much smaller pump. So this must be an upgraded bigger pump, and that's why I don't need the shims. So if you're not like me with the bigger pump and you have the smaller pump, make sure you shim them. They just go at the back. So don't put them on the front, obviously. They go on the back, and then you use these 2 bolts. And what'll end up happening is it allows for the pulleys to stay in line. Otherwise, if they're not in line, it gives it a chance for the belt to walk and jump off, can damage your power steering pump and a bunch of other stuff. So you have to make sure that belt lines up. For me, I definitely don't need a shim. If I shimmed this, it would be so far off whack, it would definitely jump off track, and that's not what I want. So again, I don't have the number for the other one, but this is my power steering pump that I'm running, which is an SP32332. If you're running that same pump and not just the one from the kit online, then yes, use the shims. Me, no shims. Kind of sucks. I was looking forward to using the new shiny bolts on it, but I have to use these ones. I just checked the measurement and that wouldn't fasten down if I used those bolts. It would, of course, have too much because it accounts for the spacer. So it's too bad. If they were threaded up higher, I would just use the spacer just to do it. But again, we're only using 2 bolts, so I'll just take these 2 guys and tie them into the timing cover. If I remember correctly, and I'll quickly check for myself, I think these go to 19 foot-pounds. Go ahead and put those bolts at 19 to 21 foot-pounds. And now, I think before we bend this one over, let's go ahead and take the cap off of our big guy right here. See if we get a mess. Basically, now we need to make our line from right here to right here. It's going to be a very small line. So what I'm going to do is do one side of the fitting, squeeze it together, measure it over. I'll let you know the size, and we'll try to keep it as clean as we can to come across here, but also not impeding this line, which needs to go on top here. Again, as you can see, where it is, I'm going to have to twist it with my hand just a little bit as we go in. I ended up saying screw it, just tightening it on. As you can see, it shoots off to the side here and goes under this line. So now I have a place, if I want to, I can zap strap or put a line holder right here. And then same with down here, I can have that held. And then now I know it's not going to chafe against anything, because that's the biggest thing when you have a line like that. Next thing we got to do is grab another PSC fitting there, and we're gonna just put that one off there, that one off there, and see our lines. So just hand thread them on. So that is a 13-inch line. I'll show you how it goes in a sec. Unfortunately, I don't have any heat shrink that will go over the tips of this. So the best thing you can do is, just to make sure it doesn't, is just burn the frays, just like you would if you had a fray on your shirt. So just take a lighter and heat up the fray, let it burn, and then, yeah, just burn it back to the plastic. From this point, if you so wish, you can go ahead and pop your front grille back on, unless you're worried about your power steering cooler leaking. I'm not. I already know the thing seals up, so I'm gonna go ahead and just throw the grill back on just to get it out of the way. Pretty easy. Put the bottom piece in, then sink the center in, bottom piece in, sink center in, blah, 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 blah. And then just put your lights back on. Once you've done so, front grill's back on. Just don't forget to put the lights back in. If we come up here, as you can see, I actually cut off the heat shrink I did, so that way it matches both sides, because in the end, it was going to look too different. I tried it out and I was like, nah, I didn't like that. Anyways, for right now, I'm at a standstill because I wanted to fill the system with synthetic power steering fluid. Unfortunately, I don't have any. Everywhere is sold out around me. So I'm gonna have to order some, and for you it'll be 1 second. For me, it could be a week. I decided to put the serpentine back on. Now, the best way for me to do this is just tell you, go down below both pulleys at the very bottom, which would be your harmonic balancer and your AC. Then it comes up like so. Don't put it on this one, and this is the last one that you do, but leave it kind of tight in here. If you have a second set of hands, get them to hold it, all the slack. Then you wrap it around your alternator down past the water pump, and that is when it goes, the back end of the belt goes around the tensioner, and then it wraps around and then back down to the harmonic balancer, which is your complete circle. Again, I do have a video on this. If you type in Ghostly Rich 5.7 Serpentine, I have the motor out of the vehicle and I show you how to do it. So if you're having a lot of trouble getting that serpentine back on, go watch that video so you know what you have to do. And then, yeah, I just reseated it. It's perfect. We still have enough tension on here. Well, guys, I was waiting for this power steering fluid to arrive. So since I ended up picking up some Evil Energy AN aluminum wrenches because they were like 30 bucks on Amazon Canadian. So it means they're probably like 25 bucks American. Anyways, that was what was best for doing this. I ended up loosening this one off, tightening this one, then tightening that one, and tighten that one down below. When building the high pressure side, I don't suggest using those aluminum wrenches. It won't be strong enough. I'll tell you now, you have to use steel wrenches to be able to tighten these. I could just see you melting those wrenches when trying to tighten up the high pressure fittings. Anyways, let's move on. As you can see in the back there, I left these just on there for a second. I'm going to trim them. I zap strap this here, and as you can see, that's going to be more than enough for this anti-splash valve. So all I'm going to do now is cut this piece of nylon, nylock, whatever you want to call it, quick connect hosing, so it'll go, and it just simply presses in, by the way. See this? See how it pulls back? That's how easy it is to release the tube, and to press it on, you just do that. So press in and it locks, and then to release, hold it in, slide tube out. That's how easy it is. Cut it to length, put it in. Again, to show you how easy it is, just sink it in and press in, and then try and pull out. That's how you know it's in. You'll feel it slide in, and done. Don't need a long line, but just make sure you don't have any kinks. If you get any kinks, you're gonna have problems. As you can see, this is gonna clear our hood. We're all set and ready to go there. So all that's left, really, what I'll probably do is I've got that belt on. I'll probably put my fan back in. Go ahead, do one more check with your fittings. After you've done that, it's time to lift your Jeep. As you can see, I have mine right next to, actually you're probably not gonna be able to see it because the sun's shining on the cement, but I'm right next to the pumpkin. Don't go on the lip, go right next to the pumpkin and just lift it up there. After you've done that, we'll take the lid off of the power steering reservoir and fill it full of fluid. Now, I'll say this now, but this isn't what we're aiming for right now. You can put it there if you'd like, but at the very end of this all, we want to be 1 inch below the top of the cylinder. So just open this up like so and put that just right there, doesn't matter. And now fill this up, just don't go above the threads. You are gonna go down, don't worry when we move this, so try and fill it up just above, right about here. And then what we'll do is we're gonna put the key in, don't start it, and we're gonna move our steering side to side. If you can, all the way to the left, all the way to the right, all the way to the left, all the way to the right. Do it 3 times. Check the reservoir and top it up accordingly. All right, it went down quite a bit. I did, just like I said, back and forth 3 times. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna throw this in. Again, I already know it's gonna be down a bit, so just fill it in up to there. And let's go ahead and turn it left, right, left, right, left, right again. Just repeat that process until the level stops dropping. After it does that, we will lower our jack, let the Jeep set on the ground. We can go ahead and start it, and then we'll let the pump run. You don't have to move the steering. The pump's just gonna run. It's gonna push out some more air bubbles, and then we should be good from there. And then from there, you're just gonna be monitoring it. One thing I like to do is basically, for what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna back it out of my garage, double check it, then you drive it around the block, double check it. After you drive it around the block, see how much your fluid level's gone down, and then top it up accordingly, and then leave it. And then just check on it every periodically, just so you can double check that your fluid level is not changing. And again, it says about 1 inch from the cylinder, so that's almost there, like it's almost the threads, but again, it seems about right. Well, I've gone ahead and I have turned that steering wheel about 15 times now, and it has not gone down. So I'm gonna go ahead, lower this thing, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. Just look at your AC line, monitor that it hasn't gotten any closer to your header, check your tubing, make sure your tubing hasn't gotten and isn't resting on your header, and just do one last look, start it, and then expect a bit of smoke. You're probably gonna see if you spilt anything at all on your header, which is right below the old power steering system. So if you did get anything on there, well, or when you're putting this one together, it's gonna burn off, it's gonna smoke. It'll scare you, but it's gonna smoke. Anyways, go ahead and I think if you've gone and done like 20 and you haven't seen the level, you can go ahead, put the cap back on, let it pressurize, and then let it run for about 5-10 minutes. Go ahead, and from that point, just open it up and top it up accordingly. I don't think that'll ever get old tightening that. Just that sound, that feel, it's so nice. All right, gonna go ahead, start it up. Again, if you can, I'd say even at the weld mark or just below it, let it go. That's what this is for. This is your splash valve. If you bought one, definitely worth it, I guess. Again, I just had them included. I'm gonna go ahead at the very end and post all the part numbers. I know a few of you probably want to hear it start. So let's go ahead. I'll get the key in and pull the microphone out. I'm gonna aim the front so you hear the exhaust in the back. And again, just monitor it. Leave it going for a bit. Just rolled mine out of the garage, and just so all that smoke could burn off, because I did get some fluid on my headers and it was quite smoky. Anyways, I got that all backed off now. That is the system all sealed up and ready to go. I gotta say, it's a lot of money, but it makes troubleshooting and everything so much easier. Literally, you can see the rack fittings from this angle. So if you have any leaks, you'll see them there. The power steering fitting, rather than being on the bottom of the pump, it's on top of the pump. You've got the big fill over there, takes that piece off of here, and it just makes it look a million times better. I also took some of the extra pieces I had from other kits and I remade this line because the old line just looked atrocious at the beginning of the video. So while I was waiting for a few things, I did that. The anti-splash valve, I guess that's just going to be nice for a splash pressure release valve. And yeah, other than that, that's all there is to it. What a sweet kit. Is it cheap? Heck no. I think I probably spent $1,700 Canadian on this kit. And that, again, it comes with the bracket, this fitting, that, the pulley, all the lines, everything. Now, was there some stuff I didn't use? Well, yes, there was. So if we come over here, let's quickly go over this to wrap up the video. Let's start off with all the parts. This is the power steering pump I used. It is not the one I believe that comes with the Hemi swap kit, because we'll go into that in a second. But as you can see, SP32332, it's a big, crazy pump that I was recommended to get. Now, I guess you need this for the smaller pump, because you definitely don't need it for the 5.7. It comes with this as well as 2 spacers, just in case you have to space it out. You definitely don't need this if you go with this pump. The reason why is it just, yeah, it eats up the gap. So these 2 parts are unneeded. Don't get them. I'm actually going to see if I can get my money back because they were totally unneeded. Anyways, on top of that, you have yourself the remote reservoir, and that is an SR146. These 3 clamps they give you for those push-on connections, I don't usually use them ever. I don't get leaks with the twist lock, but if you're worried about them leaking, definitely install these. But personally, I don't think you need them. If you have a toolbox that you bring with you off-roading, throw these in there. That way, if for some reason one of the fittings starts weeping, you can go ahead and install it, but I don't think you will. This is the anti-splash valve, SRVT. Again, this is just nice to have just in case. It's just a troubleshoot fail-safe. Is that the best way to put it? It's a fail-safe. Why not? Protect your investment. Anyways, this was just a card that came on it. This is the hose kit. This is the low side, I believe. Yes, hose kit. HK2140-6-12. This is a really cool kit. I would highly suggest it. And then right here, this is the high pressure kit. Definitely, if you're Hemi swapping, even if you don't use this stuff, get their high pressure hose kit. Then you can make your own, and it's totally worth it. You'll just need to buy the 2 M16 fittings, so that way you can screw it into your power steering pump as well as this. But I highly suggest you get their power steering pump and save yourself the headache. So again, HK2092 for the high pressure kit hose. Right here, this is remote reservoir bracket for the Jeep. That's the one that you've seen me use in there, and add to the brake booster, MB55K. Definitely worth it. Fits in a nice spot for extras. What's this guy here? Oh yes, the power steering pulley, of course. PP2457. Then you don't need to buy Todd's from Jeep Speed Shop, because theirs works with their pump. So definitely make sure you pick this up when you're doing your power steering. You can actually then, you'll save I think a couple $100 if you go this way, because then you don't need to buy Todd's little bracket that you've seen me take off, and you won't need to buy his power steering bushing from his kit. So make sure that you let him know that, or don't order it. And then last but not least, the fittings. This is for the remote reservoir, SRK-6-12-P. You might wonder why, and 6 and 12. That's why their part number is that way. Anyways, SRK-6-12-P. The only thing you don't see a package for is the piece for the rack, which you screw in. Like I said, that was the wrong piece that it came with. It requires a M16-1.5, and that will be, you can get it from Performance World and other places. And I think it's the same size for the other side on the pump. I can't be 100% sure. I can't remember, and their pump comes with it. So that's the thing. If I were you, just order their pump. Even if you don't order the rest of this jazz, make sure you get the pump. Okay? Other than that, that's all there is to it. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And man, that is the perfect view to end this video on. Here, I'll give you a view off the side of my property. Golden shower hour. Anyways, thanks again for watching. Press a like if it helped you out, and subscribe for more. You never know what I'm going to do next.